Many, many years ago, I had a gym teacher by the name of Emery Johnson, who was a great athlete and coach in the North Shore of New Brunswick. We got along, but a few issues he's very stubborn about. He was francophone and was a big Toronto Maple Leaf fan, which I never really understood. And him and his co-worker Dale Thorburn, a very nice guy as well, challenged me when I told him that the NHL was broadcast on American television as early as the mid-1950s. This is when Fox started to come in and all that. Now, no disrespect to Emery or Dale, they were never sports editors, they were great teachers. So here's a little bit of history of that. Now, both Dale and Emery are gone now, and a big loss for the community. But when it came to the knowledge of the NHL on CBS especially, and when I told him where do you think Peter Puck came from, I think NBC had worked on that. They didn't have much to say. So here's a little bit of a history on the NHL on CBS. We might do something on the NHL and NBC because they were more prominent in the 1970s. Now, CBS was the first major network in the States to broadcast hockey. Now, they did it from three separate periods. The original 6 era from 57 to 60. The expansion era from 67 to 72. And 79 to 1980. Now, with original 1957 game telecasts, CBS became the first American television network again to broadcast NHL games. There's no indication if the regional ones did it, but this was the first national. Now, the first broadcast NHL games for 4 seasons from 57 to 1960. They aired games on Saturday afternoons, which kind of ties into the Boston home games on Saturday afternoons, with announcer Bud Palmer serving as play-by-play. And Fred Kuziak did color commentary as well as interviews for the first 3 seasons. Now in 1960, Kuziak moved over to play-by-play, while the great Brian McFarland came in to do the color commentary and interviews as part of his CBC contract. Now the pre-game and intermission interviews were down on the ice, with the interviewer on skates. No playoff games were televised during this period, and all broadcasters took place in one of 4 American arenas at the time. Now, CBS covered the 57 season on Saturday afternoons, starting on January 5th, 1967, with a game between the Rangers and Hawks at MSG. For the next 3 years, the network continued along with games on Saturday afternoons, starting on November 2nd, 1957, October 18th, 1958, and January 9th, 1960. Now, according to the Book Network, CBS broadcast 10 games that were popular with viewers. The 4 American franchises, the Bruins, the Blackhawks, the Red Wings, and Rangers, each received $100,000. However, the players themselves received no money for the television deal. Now, furthermore, according to SI, the NHL dropped CBS because the NHL owners did not want the fledgling Players Association to gain a financial cut of the TV deal. This was despite the fact that CBS was at least at one point getting better ratings than NBC's NBA package from around the same period, especially in the cities that had NHL minor league or major college hockey teams. Now, according to Random Nielsen information, the games were getting between 2.4 and 7.5 million viewers on a Saturday afternoon, which is probably pretty well like a lower echelon, but still pretty good nonetheless. Now, 64, CBS offered to broadcast a game in the week on Saturdays during the NFL season. By the winter, CBS would move the game of the week to Sundays in the same time slot. Ultimately, the NHL rejected the idea, saying it would cause too many scheduling and travel problems. The league was especially worried about a game from Montreal to Toronto being played on a Saturday afternoon and not on a Saturday night to accommodate CBC television or many advertisers, and teams having to play an early afternoon game on Sunday after playing a game the evening of the previous night. Now, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they did not appear in any scheduled games because the team played at home every Saturday night. Now, according to published reports, Montreal would only play if they skated against Boston or Chicago on a Saturday afternoon. So you were pretty well limited with the top team, which of course was the Habs. Now, from 1967 to 72, for 6 seasons through, again, 72. They were doing a weekly game of the week between mid-January and early mid-May in each of the seasons. Now, the American-based franchises got U.S. $100,000 annually for the first 2 years of the contract and $150,000 for the third. From 69, the intermission studio was called CBS Control, just like with his NFL coverage. Now, due to prior programming commitments, CBS did not broadcast regular season games during the 67 season, so the portion of the package was subsidized to Arcade General, which syndicated 8 regular season games in some cities, including the 4 U.S. cities that had NHL clubs and the 6 U.S. cities that would gain new teams in the 67 expansion. Now, during the 67 playoffs, CBS was scheduled to broadcast the April 8 game between the Rangers and Canadiens. However, an after-strike forced cancellation of the telecast, but even though the strike ended 2 days later, it hurt programming. Now, CBS started its weekly 68 coverage with the opening game, Flyers versus Kings, at the Forum in Inglewood on December 30th. Then, after 2 more Saturday afternoons, CBS switched to covering Sunday afternoon games beginning on January 28th for the next 10 weeks. Now, on March 10, 68, CBS broadcast a game at Chicago Stadium between Toronto and Chicago in a precursor to the highly fiasco on NBC a few months later when they cut early from a Raiders game to show Heidi. CBS, by the last minute or so, decided that the game was over and went to a children's movie called The Goalkeeper Also Lives in Our Street. Now, due to another strike by AFTRA, which resulted in the cancellation of a Rangers-Montreal game, CBS started its playoff coverage with a CBC tape of the previous night's Boston-Montreal game. On April 13th, CBS started its 3-week-long weekend afternoon Stanley Cup coverage. The last game of the series was St. Louis-Montreal on May 11th. For the playoffs, Jim Gordon worked play-by-play with the great Stu Nahan working color. Now, during the regular season, Gordon and Nahan alternated roles each week. For instance, Gordon worked play-by-play on December 30th, while Nathan worked play-by-play the next week. Now, in 69, CBS broadcast 13 regular season afternoon games and 5 Stanley Cup playoff games. Dan Kelly did play-by-play, while Bill Mazer did color commentary. In 70, the great Pat Summerall and then the Boston Bruins television announcer Don Earl did a short post-game segment from inside the team's dressing room at the end of CBS coverage of the 4th and final game of the 70 Stanley Cup Finals. Now, Pat Summerall was everywhere, so it was no surprise that he was there. Now, the process continued. Afternoon games, they did show some evening contests if there wasn't much on the programming. Now, what was really interesting here, some affiliates would not show the game because by telecasting home games, it would affect the home game attendance. And there was one situation where Chicago and Montreal were in the finals, and they refused to show it again because it was a home game for Chicago in the 71 title match anyway. So now the biggest problem was, and it kind of led to a problem with the emergence of the WHA. They decided not to show the Stanley Cup Finals in 72 between the Bruins and the Rangers. The Game 5 was not telecast because it would have preempted an original Hawaii 5-0 in that same time period. Now, this was despite the fact that Game 5 was a potential clincher with the Bruins, and when it was 3-1 on the Rangers. They lucked out because the Rangers did win, and the clincher was shown a couple of nights later. Now, when CBS lost the American television rights to NBC following the 72 season, CBS was paying less than $2 million a year, and NBC doubled the offer to $5.3 million. The network covered the inaugural season of the WHA. Now, the WHA's TV deal permitted to sell weeknight games to other networks, and in addition, the WHO also sold a $3 million package to Canada. On January 7, 1973, CBS aired its first WHA game between the Saints and the Jets, live from the St. Paul Civic Center with Ron Oakes, Jerry Cheevers, and Dick Stockton, of all people, announcing. Now, CBS second go-around with the NHL came around the same time the original 6 was joined by the league's first expansion class. Now they were hoping the West Coast would bring them better ratings, but with California, it didn't work out. Now, just talking about a little bit of ratings here. The 71 game, Chicago and Montreal, prime time in the States, and it's probably one of the highest rated games of all time, 13 million US viewers. Boston Rangers was quite strong as well. The Game 6 got 11 million, Game 1 got 9, and Game 4 got 8.25. Now, Stanley Cup playoffs, they would try to show mostly Chicago, Montreal, Boston, the original 6. They would rarely get outside that box. Now, Dan Kelly again was the heavy voice, and Felix Vizito was actually brought in for the Chicago-Montreal final series because obviously Boston was out of the playoffs. Now, CBS Sports Spectacular, they did show some Super Series 76 games and the 79 Challenge Cup, and as well with the 80 Stanley Cup Finals. Now, CBS was trying to get back into hockey, but they lost to Fox in 1994-95. Now, woulda, shoulda, coulda, but NBC has really dominated in recent years hockey coverage, using some of CBC and former CTV announcers, CFTO, CHCH, all that. But I think CBS should be congratulated for doing their best of trying to bring what is a Canadian sport into the U.S. market. And generally, in the big cities, it was quite successful. You look at the numbers in Chicago and New York, the rivalry that was building between Boston and the Rangers in the 60s and 70s was really covered on CBS. And CBS has always been a heavy quality. But to see Pat Summerall announcing hockey and knowing how good he was at football, just goes to show, hometown heroes can be broadcast by any hometown hero. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's a little bit of background on my friend Emery and Dale telling me this didn't exist. So if they're looking down from heaven, it does exist, and it only took 12 minutes of their time to explain them that despite how good they were extremely wrong. Have a good day. Bye.